Welcome to the layer cake, son.
Matthew Vaughn has directed and produced some fantastic movies through the years, starting in 2004 with Layer Cake. Now, some other notable films from him are X-Men First Class and the Kingsman trilogy. He directed those. He's also been responsible for producing Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels, Snatch, and X-Men Days of Future Past, just to name a few. So it's safe to say that he has been very successful, and personally, many of his movies are some of my favorites.
My personal favorite.
So when I first saw the trailer last fall for the movie Argylle, I was intrigued. Plus, look at the cast. Henry Cavill, John Cena, Sam Rockwell, Bryce Dallas Howard, Bryan Cranston, Maureen O'Hara, Samuel L. Jackson, and Dua Lipa in a skin-tight gold dress. I mean, this sounds like a can't-miss film, right? Well, before we answer that, let's talk a little bit about the plot for the movie Argylle.
Let's talk.
So, Argylle came out last weekend, and in it, we find Ellie Conway. She's a spy novelist. She's a bit of an introvert. She has just finished a manuscript for her 5th book about Agent Argylle, the title character for her Argylle series about secret agents and spies. However, her mother Ruth believes the cliffhanger ending, it's kind of lacking and it needs a final chapter. Now, Ellie finds herself stuck with writer's block, and unable to concentrate, she takes a train over to her parents' house to cool her head, along with her cat Alfie. Now, on the train, a man named Aiden approaches her, revealing that he is actually a real-life spy, and explains that a devious organization known as the Division has targeted her because her novels have seemed to predict the future. She doesn't believe him until suddenly, killers pop out of nowhere, trying to either kill her or capture her. He saves her, and they escape by parachuting off the roof of the train.
Get the parachutes!
So the movie starts out fairly interesting. Bryce Dallas Howard plays Ellie, and while she's writing her books, she pictures Henry Cavill as Agent Argylle. So we get to see her head movie, so to speak, of her story. Now, I've always been a big fan of Henry Cavill, and these parts, they were truly my favorite. But they are few and far between. So even though he's featured in the trailer, we barely see him in this movie. Now, the first hour of this film, it's pretty entertaining. It's not great, but at least it's fun. The acting is solid across the board, but really, what else would you expect with that cast? However, as the movie progresses, the story starts to really fall apart. And by the last half hour, you're just kind of hoping that it ends. It gets so silly and ridiculous, you almost can't believe how bad it becomes. And what's worse is the CGI is so terrible. It looks like something you would see in a cheap CW show. Now, somehow this movie cost $200 million to make, but I honestly don't know where that money went. Maybe it went to pay the cast, because you didn't see it in the special effects. And despite this talented cast, they are not able to overcome the exceptionally poor writing of this movie. Some of the jokes they land, and there are a few fun action scenes, but overall it's pretty terrible. The writing's terrible, the CG is terrible. The amount of plot twist, it's going to give you whiplash. And the movie is way too long. It's like 2 hours and 15 minutes. So Argylle, it gets some mileage, although very little, out of its silly, energetic spin on the spy thriller, but it ultimately wears out its welcome with a convoluted plot and an overlong runtime. So here's hoping that Argylle is Vaughn's cinematic low point, and he can get back to making stylish, substantive motion pictures that are actually fun to watch, like the Kingsman series is. Now, this movie is the first big release of 2024, and if this is a sign of things to come, it's going to be a long year. I can't even recommend that you watch this movie on streaming. It's that bad. I would completely avoid this film.
We must avoid it at all costs.
Well, that's it for me this week. Tune in next week when I'll give you my thoughts on whatever I've seen. So click that like button, subscribe, please leave a comment or a suggestion. I'll answer anything you write. And as I say every week, thank you for giving me your valuable time, and I'll see you next week. Take care.